For those of you that don't know, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a weight class sport. This year, I entered my first IBJJF competition. I entered in at lightweight, which for women is 64 kilos or 141 pounds. Having lived most of my adult life walking around at between 64 and 64.5 kilos, I thought I would be fine and I wouldn't have to cut. Then I found out that in IBJJF competitions, they weigh you in your gi. That's the great thing about being a white belt, we're always learning. And my gi weighed a whopping 1.5 to 2 kilos, which seems like a lot for an item of clothing. I did the maths, and in order to make weight, I needed to lose 2.3 kilos in 25 days. In this video, I'm going to tell you how the cut went, what mistakes I made so you don't have to repeat them, and I'll also be including a before and after photo. Now, I'm aware that this is a relatively small cut. Some professional MMA fighters will cut 15 to 20 pounds. The reason I went for a more conservative cut is that the weigh-in had to take place an hour before the first match, which meant that there wasn't a lot of time to rehydrate. I had also observed people do really big cuts for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competitions. It seemed to me that doing an extreme cut is something that really has to be done in the correct way, or by someone who's very experienced, say someone who has wrestled competitively in the past and is just used to cutting weight. That said, please don't take any of the information in this video as medical advice. If you want proper advice on cutting weight, go speak to a nutritionist or a doctor. For the first 2 weeks of the cut, I tried and failed. I completely messed up. It was terrible. That's why this is a 3.5 week cut, not a 5 or 6 week cut, which is what I originally wanted to do. So I went and did some research and spoke to a bunch of people who have experience. Here's what I learned. Do hydrate. Hydration became really important for me while I was cutting weight. I found that the best thing was a big bottle of mineral water or electrolytes. Don't drink alcohol. Or if you do need to drink alcohol to just let off some steam, have a small amount and certainly do not get drunk. As well as lowering our blood sugar levels, recent studies have indicated that alcohol actually stimulates the part of the brain that makes us think we're hungry. Alcohol lowers our impulse control. You're much more likely to order a massive pizza and eat it, mess up your cut if you've been drinking. Alcohol's a bad idea. Do make sure that you get enough protein. This is really important if you don't want to lose strength while you're cutting weight. There's a lot of information out there on how much protein we need. Eventually, I went with Stanford-based neuroscientist and popular podcaster Andrew Huberman. Andrew Huberman recommends that we eat 1.6 to 2.7 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. I did this with 62 kilos and was able to maintain strength after having cut weight. Do eat nutrient-dense foods. That's proteins, fats, vegetables, fruits. It seems that the amount of carbohydrates that people need to eat directly correlates to the amount of physical activity they're doing. I found it helpful to have most of my carbohydrates in the morning and then a small amount in the evening after training. I also took supplements and vitamin C to make sure that I didn't get run down or worn out while I was cutting weight. Don't have a cheat day. I know, you want to have a cheat day. I wanted to have a cheat day too. I spoke to a girl who's an experienced MMA fighter at my gym and she told me not to have a cheat day and I didn't listen to her. And that is part of the reason this was a 3.5 week cut and not a 5 week cut, because having a cheat day, it just messes up the whole cut. Unfortunately, those calories just seem to count. When I stopped having a cheat day, the weight just dropped off me. The cut was 50% more effective. I think having a cheat day can be really effective for when you're trying to maintain weight. I used to have one when I was 64 kilos and I was trying to eat healthy. I would have a cheat day once a week and I never gained any weight. When you're trying to cut weight, it just doesn't seem to work, or at least it didn't work for me. Do eat food you like. You can do a lot with nutrient-dense foods. For example, if you're going to have, a steak for dinner and some vegetables, there's a lot of flavor, herbs, spices, sauces that can go into that. Don't start late. I would say, especially if you're doing a long-term cut like I did, go ahead and take however much time you think you need and just add like 30% to that. Because if I hadn't done that, can you imagine? I thought I was going to be doing a 5 week cut. And then I ended up, and I had added the time to that, and I ended up doing a 3.5 week cut. If I had gone in saying, I'm going to have to do a 3.5 week cut, I might have just had 10 days before the competition. That would have really sucked. Don't beat yourself up. Seriously, if you have a bad day and you end up eating an entire ice cream or, I don't know, whatever floats your boat, a big bowl of pasta, and you mess up the cut, honestly, I think having those days where you mess up the cut is just part of the whole process. The most important thing is that you're not too hard on yourself and you just get straight back on the bandwagon the next day. If you start feeling really despondent, it's just going to develop into a negative cycle and you're going to feel terrible and you're probably just going to want to eat more ice cream. I don't know. Do figure out what your baseline of calories is. The week before the cut, don't change anything. Just log how many calories you're eating each day. I did that, and then the next week I took off 5% and I aimed to eat that each day. Also, log your calories while you're doing the cut so you make sure that you're not sneaking any in and you just become aware of how much you're eating. Take an average of your weight for the week. Don't focus on what your weight is every day. I mean, if you do that, you'll probably drive yourself crazy. Just weigh yourself at the same time of day, and at the end of the week, take an average. Then you know if you need to reduce the calories or if you can just keep going how you're going. Do stay engaged. I found that whenever I was really involved in what I was doing, whether it was a piece of work, even training jiu-jitsu, I never felt hungry. When I was rolling, I never felt hungry. But if I was doing something that I found really boring and just didn't stimulate me at all, I immediately started to think about food. Cutting weight actually helped me to realize which tasks I really enjoy and find engrossing and which ones I don't. I made a couple of other observations during my weight cut, which maybe you'll find helpful. First of all, I noticed that I experienced real highs and lows whilst I was cutting weight. Sometimes when things went wrong, it kind of felt like I had no skin and as if everything was going wrong. But I tried to just focus on the positive and keep moving forward. I also found it helpful to tell people what I was doing. That way they could encourage me, and I could also tell them when I just wasn't feeling very great about the cut. I managed to do the cut and make weight for the competition. Yay! Now for the before and after photo. Here on the left, that's what I looked like before the cut, and on the right, that's what I looked like after the cut. I don't really have a strong opinion about which one I prefer. Next week, I'll be sharing some footage from the competition and also letting you guys know how it went. So if you want to see that, go ahead and hit subscribe.